Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Humanitarian Chronicles, where I highlight extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm Abby Lodmer, conscious comedian, health coach, life coach, and I am here today with the amazing Nadine Artemis, botanical muse, beauty philosopher, aromacologist, founder of North America's first full-concept aromatherapy store, Osmosis, creator of Living Libations, a line of serums, elixirs, and essential oils that nurture beauty, enhance the immune system, and what we're going to focus on primarily today, promote healthy oral care. Nadine is the author of the incredibly informative book, Holistic Dental Care, The Complete Guide to Healthy Teeth and Gums, an essential read in my book. So, Nadine, without further ado, let's talk gums, dentine, and enamel. Thank you for being here. You're awesome.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
Where do you want to start?
Oh, wow. Well, you know, I
sure.
love your book. I haven't read it word for word, but I have skimmed it emphatically. I've emphatically skimmed it. And I love that you actually talk about what causes poor dental hygiene. And you talk a lot, first and foremost, about that internal toothbrush. So I'd love for you to start there and tell us what you mean by that.
That's a great place to start because I feel like that's the thing to know.
Yep.
Really. And yeah, so it's the, also I call it the invisible toothbrush, the internal toothbrush, because of course we weren't born with like a toothbrush in our hand, right? So I always thought, well, what else do we need to know? Because the toothbrush and the toothpaste stuff isn't working. Because more than ever, even though we have, hundreds of periodontal promises and minty mouthwash and fluoride, everything, we are still at a time in North America's history where we're having the most bleeding gums, the most root canals, the most cavities, the most everything going on with our mouths.
Yep, sounds familiar. Sounds like
what's going on?
Yep, sounds like Western medicine.
Yeah.
Western dentistry is the same, my friends. It's only been around for a short period, I think under 100 years, right, in human history, and we have more disease and more problems than ever. So run as fast as you can from the system. Go on. Sorry, Nadine. Thank you.
So no, that's okay. There's a lot going on, and there are people that have those issues, and they have been diligently brushing their teeth twice a day and flossing and doing the whole bit. So why do they have problems and all that kind of thing? So deeply went into it, and I did a lot of the regular research, which is like Weston Price, and I read everything. But one thing that really struck me, and was such a small find, but it grew to like that, was Hal Huggins, who's a great renegade dentist. I mean, he's been talking about mercury since 1963. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful I had a few chances to interview him and talk to him, and his research we're all so thankful for today. He wrote a book that is only had one chapter on dental, but it's called Why Raise Ugly Kids? Because I was going to buy everything he ever wrote. And there's a chapter where the dental chapter, and he's talking about when he met Dr. Ralph Steinman at Loma Linda University. And he just said his whole schooling just like went away like a sandcastle on a beach, like just was wiped away because Dr. Ralph Steinman talked about this dentinal lymph fluid. And that is the systemic connection to the whole body. Because even when you look at dentists that are talking about holistic dentistry, which is awesome and right, and saying it's connected to the body, and there's tooth meridians and all this sort of stuff, and I mean, how could they not be connected to our body? So we get all that, but it was this deeper level and a lymph system in the teeth. I mean, that's just fascinating to me. So I took that one thing and then I followed it as much as I could. And luckily, the internet helped. I'm trying to think because I wrote the first edition in like 2009. So there wasn't this other book out yet, but luckily, so I did a self-published version and then I did a published version, which has been out now which is probably the book you have.
Yeah.
Luckily, since then, a collection of all of his studies have been published. And, it was just a year after he died. I think he died in 2009. Anyway, the man and I had other stuff of his, but it was so great to see all the studies because, so what's going on is that we have this dentinal fluid that nourishes each tooth. So each tooth is like a tree with roots, and it uptakes the nutrients from the roots into the tooth.
Right.
And that's the internal chamber of the tooth with the dentine, the pulp chamber. That's where all the juicy stuff happens. That's why we need vitamins D3 and K2 and the different vitamins to keep that. I think of it as like a plump atmosphere in there. Mm-hmm. And so it's blood in the body, but once it reaches the pulp chamber, it becomes a clear lymph fluid. And then there's sort of like these fenestrated areas, which are like windows, and the odontoblasts make healthy bone cells. Right. They have a pumping action, and they pump the fluid out onto the surface of the teeth. And what you get on the teeth is this like microscopic sweat of the dentinal lymph fluid.
Wow.
And then that, besides all the work it did in the tooth already, and then it's doing a whole bunch of new work on the surface of the teeth, it's coalescing with the saliva. It's helping the mouth's microbiome. If there's an area that needs attention, there'll be more fluid going that way, and more saliva will go that way. But so many things that we're doing are inhibiting that process.
Right.
And if that process is inhibited, the dentinal lymph system becomes stagnant, or worse, it reverses.
Wow.
Then the teeth become like a straw, and they suck stuff in from the mouth. And the mouth has always got a lot of stuff going on, like fungus and bacteria, pathogens, and they're getting drawn into the tooth. And that is the genesis of a cavity.
Oh my God.
It's not about, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you talk about that in your book, that it's an inside job. It starts from inside. It's actually what we eat and how we live that mutates our blood, our cells down, like you say, down in the root system, that then goes back up to either build or destroy, decay our teeth. It's not, I eat sugar and the sugar goes into my enamel. No, I eat sugar.
Exactly.
The sugar goes into my blood and cells and tissues. And through the dental goes up into the teeth. I love that you clarify that. Every dentist I've ever met is so miseducated. I mean, they learn that in dental school, but they don't learn why. They're like,
I don't think they learn that at all in dental school, actually.
I mean,
so the theory, in the 40s, it split. There was dentists that apparently thought there was a systemic connection, because this came to Dr. Steinman from like a book in the 1800s, and he had asthma allergies so bad in August every year he couldn't practice, and this is in the 50s. And then he's like, hey, I don't know why, but somebody said, why don't you take out like sugar, like white foods and dairy? And he did, and he didn't have allergies anymore. So he was fascinated about the effects of food, and he actually stopped practicing dentistry and then did a residency of just research at Loma Linda. So he figured that all out with like X-ray fluid, and he was seeing it travel through the body, but he didn't know why, but still, because also what's fascinating is we're talking about a physical system with nutrients and blood and lymph and blah, blah, blah. But we're also talking about a really fine molecular communication system.
Right.
As with everything in the body, right? It's like all this fine communication between hormones and nerves and cellular communication and microbiome communication.
Yeah.
Right? It's so complex. But of course, we're born with a system that should take care of our teeth.
Yes.
Right? Like there's a lot of stuff we can do, but
yes, right? The body is made to heal. The body always wants to heal itself. It always wants to be in homeostasis. When we give our beautiful vessels the right minerals, vitamins, enzymes, phytonutrients that it needs to heal, it will heal. So yes, I'd love for you to talk more about that. And so you're saying we can heal, for example, cavities. When you talk about the
wherever your mouth is at, it can get better. And what was neat too is, so he hooked up, because he was like, but how does it happen? So he hooked up with an endocrinologist. Endocrinologists study the whole hormone system, and then they found out through another hundreds and hundreds of studies. I mean, I think they did about 1,000 studies altogether over a course of 20 years. And so that was Dr. John Leonora, and then they discovered that it's like, of course, it all goes back to the hypothalamus, which communicates with the parotid glands. There's some right here, but inside our mouths and right there. And then that, when we chew food, if it's nutritious, the substrates communicate with the hypothalamus, and then that sends a fluid, and so it's like a whole system like that.
Awesome.
So what happens when we have a diet that's high in sugar and low in minerals, that spikes blood sugar, and then that's how we can end up reversing the system. So it's not about the sugar sitting on the teeth, and that's what was in the 40s, where the dental association was like, they were deciding how cavities were formed. I mean, I'm very much simplifying a thing that happened, but it really did happen at a meeting. And then they were like, no, actually, okay, it's going to be the acidogenic theory. So that's what we're working with today, which is that things sit on the mouth, acidic things, or acid, so from lemon to sugar. Not that sugar is necessarily acidic, but actually it is acidic, isn't it? Anyway, it's like all these things on the mouth. But it's funny because when they do studies of like bacteria in sugar, it's not always affecting it. So there are holes in that theory as well. But it also takes away all the pressure from just the top of the teeth, or that brushing thing. Yeah. So we realize it's a whole system. And then when you cross-reference that, it was kind of newer material because it really hadn't been discussed by hardly anybody. And when you combine that with other research, so the work of Weston Price, that was like, we need the fat salt, we need D3 and K2, we need minerals. He studied diets all over the world. Even, it's fascinating when he would look at a twins. So like with the Hebrides, which are these not rare, but what do you call it? This isolated islands, Scottish islands. So they'd have one twin was by the harbor, and so where all the sugar foods were coming in, and then one twin was like working in the land in the interior, and their faces, the photos of their faces are crazy because they're just developed so differently with the modern food and the traditional food.
Yes, I'd love to stop you and talk about that right now. Yes, Weston Price's studies are so incredible because he proves that crooked teeth are not just, everybody needs braces. No, it's it's deformation. Your skull is growing deformed because you're not eating enough healthy foods to make your skull grow in properly. When Weston Price
and then what did your mother eat in pregnancy too?
Exactly.
So there's that, and then there's the further development, and then there's things like mouth breathing, and there is a bit of genetics now because now we have like 5 generations of eating sort of more modern food.
Well, it's genetic,
and then that's affecting.
Yeah. If you're not doing heart math and EMT and NLP to change your genetics, then genetics will affect you. But that we'll talk about Dawson Church for that one.
And then luckily we got epigenetics too, so we don't have to have the genes be the thing. So then you're relating it to that, and then also the work of Dr. Melvin Page, who besides many things, he studied that when blood sugar spikes to a certain level, cavities come, and also when the phosphorus ratio gets off balance, cavities also come. And then back to Dr. Steinman, he found that even if you didn't change the diet, you added minerals in, cavities would be inhibited. Of course, if you remove sugar, cavities would be inhibited. And also other times he found, like if there was hormonal stress times, pregnancy and teenage times, or just like all the things that can go wrong with our hormones these days, if you think of all the endocrine disruptors. So he also found that affected the teeth as well. So if you added back in magnesium and some other ones, he found that cavities went away. Dr. Weston Price, he found if you added in, back then they would have cod liver oil and vitamin D3, that the cavities would reverse, and it would be prophylactic, so it would be preventative as well.
Wow, so cavities do reverse, my friends. That is the key right here. That was a very detailed explanation, which I love, to say that, yes, cavities, you can reverse cavities. Your body wants to heal. You can totally heal cavities, just like you can heal a cut. It's a cut. Basically, it's a wound in your mouth. It's just an infection.
Yeah.
And an infection can be healed. And I'd love to say, because I am a vegan, that where the cod get their healthy nutrients is from the phytoplankton and the algae. So everybody eat what the cod eat to get healthy bodies. Eat algae, eat blue-green algae, E3 Live, chlorella every day. That's what you need to rebuild systemic diseases, all systemic diseases. And for, the K and D, eat wheatgrass.
All K2.
K2.
All K2 is generally made from fermented soy.
Okay.
So K2 is a really easy one to supplement. And there are vegan D3 supplements, and there's also patches.
Yep. And
so,
yes.
And there's the sun. And there's the sun.
The sun, amen.
Which is vegan.
And if you can't, right, which is vegan. And if you can't be near the sun, because I'm in Seattle, get yourself those sun lamps, babies. You got to get the UV sun lamps. Go to infrared hot yoga. Do it all. But yeah, amen, sister. We can heal cavities. You do not need to go to a dentist, who, by the way, have the highest levels of mercury poisoning, divorce, suicide, and so many other diseases, mental issues. Dentists, highest levels, right? So why would you go to these
probably
people?
Because of all the chemicals they use and the mercury.
Right.
Because it was just recently where they put in, and I don't know if it's at every dentist's office, but they have vent machines now, and because if you're removing mercury, one of my favorite dentists, Dr. Stuart Nunnally, he is a great practice outside of Texas. People all over the world fly to him. And he jokes, he says, like, I think it was in the 80s and 90s, he's like, I thought I was like a holistic dentist because I would remove mercury for people. And that's kind of like all he did that was different. Then it got to a place where he could hardly lift his leg over on a curb of a sidewalk.
Wow.
And now he's a triathlete. So somebody had suggested to call Dr. Hal Huggins, and he did. And, Dr. Hal Huggins met him, and then actually the first thing they did was they took care of any jaw cavitation. So those come from when we have an extraction, and across the board, what's done when we have an extraction, the periodontal ligament is left in the mouth, which Hal Huggins explained is akin to leaving the placenta in after giving birth.
Oh my gosh.
It's just left there.
Wow.
So 40 years later, 30 years later, 10 years later, you can get jaw cavitation, which is rotting in the jaw. The jawbone becomes necrotic because it just festers, a whole thing. In fact, it doesn't show up on an x-ray until maybe it's like 50% eroded. And so the technique that biological dentists do is they can test. So it doesn't show up on an x-ray, but they can it's already a hole in your tooth anyway. I mean, right? It's not a space where there's a tooth.
Right.
So they just drop in one of those tiny dental instruments. And if it sinks in, if it's mushy, then they're pretty sure you have a cavitation. So they'll open it, and then they scrape the bone. They scrape all the bacteria and stuff off the bone. And then blood comes back to the area.
Oh, good.
Forms a healthy blood clot. Yeah, and it gets all flushed and cleaned out. So it's actually not too crazy of a procedure if you want to get that checked out. So for old wisdom teeth sites,
right?
Or if you had a tooth extracted, and of course that would be a biological dentist. If you tell your regular dentist, they'll be like, "What?"
It's kind of like telling a regular doctor who number one killer of life on earth is Western medicine. It's kind of like telling that kind of doctor that you'd like to heal your body naturally instead of killing yourself with chemo. Okay. So it's the same. I'm just saying it like it is. I'd love to talk about three things that you mentioned just now. Mercury and the debacle, the mercury debacle. I'd love to talk about what is the harm in removing teeth, because I know that you talk about it in the book. Each tooth is connected to an organ. So how does a tooth infection or a removal of a tooth affect that organ? And three, let's see if we can remember all this. It's on my mind now, so I'm saying it. We'll start with those two.
Okay. So mercury's been used since about the 1850s. So maybe, I guess, modern dentistry is like about from the late 1800s on. And it's still used today, which is so crazy because maybe back then we didn't know, but we do know now that it is one of the most toxic substances on the planet, and it's being inserted into our bodies and right by our brain. And there is so much data that show that it's linked to, dementia, a whole bunch of autoimmune diseases that there's so many of them that it's linked to, MS, different things like that.
Autism.
Plus even just milder forms of issues like psychiatric things. mercury also feeds like the unwanted microbes we have. Huggins called it the marriage of metals and microbes. So heavy metals love pathogens. They kind of eat them for breakfast. So then there's like a whole, then we're adding mercury onto our modern bodies, which have like, missing microbes now. Our microbiomes are depleted. And the EPA, or it could be the FDA, but what they deem like if one, like let's say we took out our mercury tooth and then we threw it in a lake, a 20-acre lake. I hope I have the stats right. It's horrible that even if it was a 10-acre lake, I can't remember if it was a 10-acre lake or a 20-acre lake, and it's like one tooth or two teeth, but still, that lake would be deemed non-fishable, non-swimmable.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
People, wake up!
I know.
This is in your face. This is in your body.
When we remove it from our mouths, there's no alchemical change to the metal. There's no once it removes, it alchemizes into something more toxic. But the protocol for once that tooth is removed from your mouth is hazmat. I'm exaggerating, but it's like not hazmat suits, but it has to go into certain containers and certain protocols has to be followed.
Well, the dentist and
it did not change.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did not change, right, from being removed from your mouth. And in the stats from Endodontics Journal and stuff, it's something like, the vapors, now they know the vapors are being released 24/7, 2 years after it's in, 40 years after it's in, it doesn't stop.
Wow.
And it increases when you chew or have hot liquids. It increases, the vapor release increases by about 1,500%.
Oh my gosh. So what about chewing gum?
Yeah, not a good idea if you have mercury fillings.
Oh my gosh, isn't
and
that
interesting? And there are also things for how it relates to skin. For some women, it's the cause of their hyperpigmentation or their melasma on their faces.
Oh my gosh, I have some of that. I need to do some chelation
immediately.
There's
other ways it can happen too, but it is one of the things. And they also cause receding and bleeding gums. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that it can do. So the thing is, though, is to not have it removed just by any dentist, because now it is popular to have them removed. And if you go to just normal guy dentist or woman, it'll just be normal protocol. And so then back to Stuart Nunnally. So what was happening is he's removing all the mercury, but without a vent system, without dental dams. So he was getting so exposed to the mercury that he got mercury poisoning.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's the issue with a lot of the dentists and their suicide rates and stuff, because they have unknown mercury poisoning. So you have to go to a biological dentist that is trained in the Hal Huggins protocol for removal. Okay. So they have the air units that suck it out. They've got a dental dam on and a lot of other protocols that I don't know them all. But when you call your dentist and ask for their specific protocol on mercury removal.
Get in touch with Nadine to get a good reference, my friends. Yeah. Don't go to any old homeopathic dentist, because all they do is, like the one you mentioned, all they do is remove the fillings. They're not ventilating. They're not telling you to detox and chelate. Because even when you pull it out, no matter how good the ventilation system is, some residual is going to be swallowed back down into your body, in your gums, in your wherever. It's going to be in the vapor. So you've got to detox. Yes. I tell all my patients this. Please, all my clients, please go get your mercury fillings out, for God's sakes, and do a major detox when you do it. So there's my 2 cents.
We have an article on our site that takes you through questions to ask a prospective dentist. So I do check that out. And then there's a couple of organizations below. And then also one company that's really up on their mercury detox game is Quicksilver Labs. Wow. And they have it all.
Cute name.
So
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So mercury, it can make an entire lake unswimmable, unlivable. Dentists and hygienists have to use hazmat suits for real when they're working with this. Gloves and hazmat suits. Why is this stuff being put in our brain? And then gum chewing releases the vapors. Chewing releases the vapors. Hot liquids release the vapors. Cell phone use activates the mercury and the heavy metals. So
Yeah, so part of the removal protocol is, and I don't know it per se, but I know they have to do one side and then the other side because of the electrical current, the galvanic charges.
Oh my
so the
gosh.
Hal Huggins protocol also, like every dentist is trained that way. They know to do this certain order where they're working with the currents.
Unbelievable. Oh my God, I'm so grateful for people in the know. Thank God. Well, okay, so that's mercury. There's even more that we could talk about. That's a whole other video, so I'll have you back, Nadine. And then what about extracting teeth, root canals, specifically wisdom teeth? We don't need to get our wisdom teeth out. That's deformation again. That's overcrowding from being, birthed by toxic parents and being deformed from birth, from my studies. So, what do you have to say about all that?
With Weston Price too, he's like, we didn't get enough nutrients to make enough space in the tooth, so there is now modern overcrowding.
Right.
And he was working, you can work with orthotropics is a whole, I have an article of that on my site. It's under braces, and there's a whole other way you can sort of reprogram the mouth and make space without braces, which have a whole other level of toxicity. They also make the face grow in a way that you don't want to grow, a vertical growth. There's a YouTube video, 60 Minutes Australia, goes into orthodontist, and they even look again at twins. One had braces, one didn't, and the face totally grew in a different way.
Yep.
And the one that didn't have braces is far more attractive in the way that he was meant to be, through birth.
Okay.
Anyway, so wisdom teeth. Through different studies. So when I'm quoting a study, I may not have all the stats right now, but they're from the British Journal of Orthodontics, or so that we're getting dental sources.
Yeah, I trust you, sweetie.
And, 60% of all wisdom teeth extractions don't have to be done.
But then how would your dentist buy his yacht? Hello?
So they say to do it preventatively, you may have an issue later, but I would wait till that day came. Because also, even if they're not growing in perfectly, doesn't mean they're growing in a way that's an issue.
Yeah.
So I had one that came later, way later, at 35.
Because it's wisdom.
I wasn't even expecting it.
Right.
And I had this pain because I didn't know about it, and it didn't quite. It's still there, but it's not it's there's a gum. It wasn't a clean pop-up.
Right. And
so I have to keep it extra clean. But I didn't know that at the time because I didn't even know it was coming in. And and then when there's tooth pain, sometimes you're just pull it out. You know what I mean? You're forget it, just take it. But anyway, I didn't know all this, and I was and I get there, and I'm breastfeeding. And I really wasn't excited anyway, but it felt like it was the thing I had to do because the x-ray said and blah, blah, blah. And then he wanted a different type of sedation, and I was breastfeeding, so I was just forget it.
No.
And he's like, well, take this hydrogen peroxide home and rinse your teeth. So I rinsed my teeth with just 3% hydrogen peroxide, and the pain totally went away.
There you go.
It was just because I didn't know it was there, so I didn't know about keeping it extra clean. And then when the emergency died down, I was able to go to my holistic dentist in Toronto, and they said, well, you can keep it.
Awesome.
You just have to take care of it.
Awesome.
I was like, okay. So that was just really a neat lesson.
I love that. Just
but
all
if you
of our
do
organs.
Yeah.
All
if
of our organs.
If you do get it removed, yes, for sure. Then you have to make sure that periodontal ligament comes out.
Right.
So that's the key.
Okay.
So anytime a tooth is removed, periodontal ligament must come out. So you must have a dentist that's aware of that. And so with a root canal, if your dentist says you need a root canal, first of all, you may not actually need one.
Right.
So that's also in my new book, I just go through really quickly 2 journalists that went on different journeys. So one was Canadian. They had their teeth fully checked, what do they need to do by, the University of Toronto Dentistry School. And she only needed a cleaning and, 1 crown redone. Then she went all across Canada with these x-rays.
Wow. And
she was, one dentist was 20 teeth needed different things. Teeth needed to be extracted, root canals, veneers, the gamut, everything. And then another journalist, I think this was in the 2000s or so, he had an x-ray done. He actually only needed one crown replaced as well. He drove across the states and went to 50 dentists.
Wow.
And again, from like $400 to $35,000. 15 of the dentists missed the crown that needed repairing anyway. And of course he was quoted root canals and all this sort of stuff. So I just say that because even though, like, even you and I and your listeners know that not all medical degree people know everything. I think we know that now. I think for our parents, it was different.
Yeah.
Right? Our parents were like, now we're going to go to the doctor or the dentist and they know, and we're going to listen to them. So it's a different time. But even with that knowledge, I think sometimes if you found yourself and you got your x-ray and you're at your dentist, it still seems so black and white. Like if he says you need a root canal, you're like, even though you may challenge things, you may still think, oh yeah, it's the x-ray, right? So I'm just saying that because it's not black and white.
It's not black and white.
And there are many interpretations of even an x-ray.
That's right, my love.
So just keep that.
That's right. I love that you're saying that, Nadine. And the same goes for lobbing off your breasts for no reason, cutting out your thyroid, cutting out your appendix. None of these body parts need to be cut out, okay? Amputating a foot. When you rejuvenate and regenerate your cells, the blood can flow back to those areas wherever they need to flow.
Yeah.
Okay? You don't need to go to these drastic measures and get root canals and body parts cut off. It's sick science, it's mutilation, and you don't need it. So I love that you're promoting, which I promote, which Pam Popper promotes, Dr. Pam Popper, be an informed consumer. Be an informed patient. You can't go to a doctor or a dentist and expect the person who's making money off of your procedures to tell you something accurate or to tell you that you shouldn't do a surgery or a procedure. Sorry, that's not how they pay their mortgage, okay? So let's think logically, my loves. So yes, on that note, I love in your book that you talk about the teeth in correlation to different organs. And like you talk about breast cancer studies and stuff, and I'd love for you to inform us about that.
Yeah, the breast cancer study is a bit different, but it does show how our teeth do relate to everything. So there's meridians all over the body. That's like ancient knowledge, of course, as a part of traditional Chinese medicine. Yeah. And so you can also just see where you've had an issue with the tooth and where that might give you a clue for the health of that organ in the body. I personally don't know if we remove a tooth, how that's going to affect the whole meridian. It will affect it. I don't know all the effects. And there are times when you do you have to weigh it out and you may have to get that tooth removed. A root canal tooth that was root canaled and that you now know that maybe you don't want to have in your body. It could be a tooth that is a root canal candidate. And so it's so far gone that you most likely might not be able to naturally heal it. And you may need that tooth removed because you don't then want just disease and decay in your mouth either. So then you have to weigh the pros and cons. And the body does so, but I feel that's better than having a stagnant, diseased thing because that's blocking the pathway anyway.
Right.
With the breasts, a fascinating study. I think it was Dr. Joseph Eisels in Europe. So he's like been a cancer doctor for about 40 years. He has all of his patients remove root canals before he works on their treatments because he's found that every person that has cancer also has a root canal.
Wow.
What was found with breast cancer was that there's a root canal on the same side of breast tumors. So even though 100% of all root canals, even if they're textbook perfect, they all harbor disease.
Yep.
That doesn't mean, though, and that it seemed like 100% of the cancer, it could be 98% of the people with cancer also had a root canal. That doesn't mean that if you have a root canal, you are going to get cancer because of epigenetics, your individual constitution, all that kind of stuff. So saying that, I don't want everybody to go, oh my God, right?
But you should get it. You should go get that systemic dead crap inside of you pulled out, though, by a biodentist. But anyway, go on.
Or if you have an autoimmune issue, or you're like, hey, because I mean, there are crazy stories. They're documented. I guess they're still anecdotal, but like people in wheelchairs because they've had MS, they have their root canals removed, and then they work towards walking again.
Yes.
People remove it, and then it helps their breast cancer clear up. Again, that's all more anecdotal, but there's a lot of hope. There's also things that happen, like, I think I heard this one from Dr. Stuart Nunnally. I interviewed him a couple times, and I think it was somebody in his office. This was before he was more aware of root canals. He may have even given her a root canal. And then I think her whole arm became like frozen arm.
Wow.
And it was 3 weeks later.
Yep.
And she was struggling with it. And I believe, I hope I'm saying this story right, I believe they removed it, and then she got her mobility back.
Yep.
So the other issue with root canals is when you really know and understand them, coming from the perspective of a dentist, which I am not, but when you're there, it's hard because you were trained that way so deeply. And then you actually have to make an ethical decision, because there's a lot of holistic dentists that will still do root canals. And then there are the mavericks that really understand them, and they will never give anybody a root canal. Those dentists are definitely pioneers, and we're very thankful they're around.
Okay,
yeah.
I know you touched on it before, but can you just say why, one more time, concisely, why a root canal is so devastating to the entire body, systemically? Like,
yeah, so the great thing is through Dr. Nunnally, and I believe Hal Huggins worked on this study too, they were greatly suspicious of root canals for a long time, and then they finally did an independent study. So for that study, they had to take textbook perfect teeth, and these were chosen by other dentists. That's a part of how they made an independent study. And so even on an x-ray, these root canals had to be perfect. And they had to be, because somebody get a root canal and it's always irritating them.
Yeah.
And so they know it's like not a happening root canal. Other people get root canals and they're just like all fine. So it was those people. They removed their root canals. And of course the bacteria was varying, but all of them had some percentage of severe necrotic bacteria. And even harboring weird diseases like leprosy, syphilis, Lyme.
That's right. So there you go.
Yeah, so it gives us other clues to how Lyme is passed around.
That's right. There you go, my friends. If you have Lyme disease, ask yourself about your dental history. Have you had a root canal? I work with so many clients in my health coaching business who have Lyme and other autoimmune diseases, and thanks to your book, Nadine, and other studies that I've read at Weston Price, Hal Huggins, actually, I asked them, that's like one of the first intake questions I asked them, what kind of dental work have you had? Have you had cavities?
Yeah,
have you had a root canal? I read somewhere that like 70 to 80%, and I think it's higher now, of all disease can be traced back to dental work. That's just the latest. I mean, I think it's higher now. 70 to 80.
Yeah, or it could be, it's like dental work or just the general health of the
general
mouth.
Health of the
So
teeth.
if you're everyday bleeding gums and really bad breath, not just like surface, but that other deeper, you can feel like you're smelling the bowel, like you're like, oh, I know your intestines.
Well, that's what
I don't want to know.
Totally. We used to know a kid that had really bad breath at school, and we'd say to him, it was horrible, mean kids in elementary school, and we'd say, go take a dump, because we knew that taking a dump would make your breath smell better. It's so sad. But no, I remember kids saying that to this kid, and then, of course, as I learned about the gut health connected to everything.
Yeah, he's probably constipated.
Yeah, poor guy. And then it's just literally fecal matter is out of his dragon mouth. So, yeah, guys, seriously, please do not get a root canal. Don't get any dental work.
The root canal study is in my book, too. Like, it's all documented in there for references. And you could probably also look it up, like root canal, Dr. Stuart Nunnally, and you could find the paper.
I'm going to put all the links under this video. So, don't worry, people. Everything Nadine's referencing will be there. But the truth of my ear teeth. But I wore these for you, babe. But yeah, so, okay,
perfect.
Dental health, connection organs to teeth, one tooth is infected, breast cancer, Lyme disease, autoimmune diseases, bad root canals, developing systemic diseases. Okay, one thing we have yet to talk about is fluoride. Where do you stand? What can we talk about with this insane miseducation about fluoride in the dental world?
Yes, well, it's funny because it's like, if you have cavities, you can ask your dentist if fluoride is right for you. Some of the side effects may include sperm motility, infertility, eroding bones, arthritis, joint pain, acne around the chin from the toothpaste, and on and on and on. So the thing with fluoride, a really easy way to think of it is it makes skin stiff and bones brittle.
Wow.
Because it is a toxin, and it gets to the core of the enzyme system in a way that makes skin stiff and bones brittle, which is totally what you don't want.
Yep.
And there's so many studies,
yep.
You know, the Harvard one on that it lowers IQ, and on and on and on.
Yep.
And it is, you know, it's a byproduct of the aluminum industry. And then you can study that whole thing,
yep.
You know, the deals that went down to put it in the water supply. I mean, it's something that we could all look at for a few years. But basically it is a toxin, and it can also make teeth, like, it can marble the teeth. Like, you can get the white flecks. It's called fluorosis. That's especially in areas where it may be high in the drinking water, and then we're adding to it fluoride treatments and fluoride toothpaste. And again, that's one of the things, if you go to a regular dentist and you're like, I don't want to do the fluoride treatment, and they'll just think you are insane. And like, well, then you better expect cavities, and you would think you're like the worst parent in the world.
Yeah. Don't listen to anyone that's been classically trained in medicine or dentistry. I'm saying it again. Another reason why, and yes, it calcifies not only calcifies hardened skin and calcifies glands, your pineal gland. Okay, you cannot get downloads that you need. Your intuition will be blocked if you have fluoride in your life. And the other issue is fluoride. They add it to the water supply. It is a huge issue, and everybody that wants to be informed, please look it up like Nadine suggested. Fluoride actually, because it weakens bone, it decalcifies pipes. That's why they add it to the water supply system. It's not for health. It's not for the health of your teeth and gums and skin and hair. It is for the health of their pipes. That's why they add chlorine, and that's why they add fluoride. Fluoride, because it breaks down bones, right? It also breaks down calcification in pipes. That's why fluoride is in the water system.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why fluoride is in the water system. Guess what it's doing inside your head, inside your body? Breaking it down, baby. So don't drink the tap water. Don't drink their Kool-Aid. Don't go to a classically trained dentist unless they've retrained themselves. Amen. I say amen to my own prayers. Okay, so thank you.
And there's a lot of amazing dentists that have really gone, okay, and they've rethought it. Because often, too, we need a dentist to reverse some of the work we've already had.
Yes, please.
You know?
Yes, I'm going to go. As soon as you've inspired me, thank you. I'm going to find a good one. I think I have a good one in LA that I'll go to.
Where? Oh, you're in Seattle.
I'm in Seattle.
I'm sure there's somebody in Seattle.
I'm sure there is. I'm gonna email you off the clock. But thank you, Nadine. Please give me the insight. And then you also talk a lot in your book about. I'd love to talk about white teeth. Everybody is doing these insane chemical whitening procedures, or like really high toxicity hydrogen peroxide, not the 3%, way higher, to whiten just the outside layer, enamel, whatever. What do you have to say about that, and how can we whiten our teeth naturally? And why do teeth become discolored in the first place?
Yeah, well, good question. So, obviously with the chemicals, there are problems, and the big issue is it wears the enamel away, and then you're in a real catch-22, because your teeth will get yellower without their enamel. So then you got a real issue going on. What we also don't know is, because it's a very topically oriented culture, is of course there's always the deeper issue. And white teeth come from within. We talked about the dentinal, the pulp chamber before, and that's the area that needs the nutrients. So teeth, the enamel's actually like a window, and it's the health of the pulp chamber, the dentine, that makes a white tooth. So if teeth are looking gray and glassy, then minerals are needed desperately in the body. And that's mainly, think of those fat-soluble vitamins, and then some key minerals like magnesium, that kind of thing. And the other reason is that like if you've ever had a glass of wine at night and then your teeth become red, because at the end of the day too, when we may enjoy wine, you know, we usually have a bit of a plaque buildup by then. And so what can happen, especially in our cultures, we eat a lot of pigmented food, like the algae, the blue-green algae and all that kind of stuff. So that can stain. It can be a surface stain that's staining old tartar and plaque.
Interesting.
So we have like our daily plaque, but you could have like some old stuff that's not coming off with brushing, and that can get discolored. So it can be a surface discoloration, but like surface that's really sticking because of the tartar and the calculus buildup. And then there's so many ways you can just, you know, I have the 8 steps.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'd love
They're
to go over that.
all over our site.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, we can go over them too.
Yeah, soon.
And then just know it's printed out or written out and that kind of thing. And so you can go through that, and then it's about polishing the teeth with the right stuff and using like hydrogen peroxide, you know, when it's right. You don't want to be using it every day, because I do find it is a bit astringent, especially to the gums. So it can kind of make the gums get too tight. But if you use it like once a week, once a month, then you can do it. And I have a fun thing that I discovered about a year ago is you take baking soda, just like a small amount, then you put your 3% hydrogen peroxide in it, and you just let it, you expose it to the air like overnight.
Wow.
And it dries out. And so then you get this hydrogen peroxide infused baking soda.
Nice.
And then it's a really good whitener.
Cool. What are the exact amounts? Do you know offhand?
No, I'm very, like...
She's a real chemist, honey. She's a real chemist.
I'm just like that.
Yeah. I wanted to actually...
I would do it like a tablespoon of baking soda, and then just enough to lightly, not quite saturate it, but, you know, get it in there and then let it dry.
God, awesome. I'm going to try it tonight.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's really good.
Well, I wanted to just touch on, because you talk about it in the book, sometimes it's built up plaque and biofilm that you talk about, which is bacteria poop, plaque, tartar, calculus on the teeth that's built up. But you also talk about, and again, Weston Price proved it in his studies, what we eat goes up through those fluids and those meridians. The roots carry it up into that dentine fluid that you talk about, and then rots the teeth from the inside out, or discolors the teeth from the inside out. But when we start eating nutrient-rich food again, the roots will carry nutrients back up to the teeth, and our teeth will whiten again. So it's not even... Yeah,
because they're always getting flushed out.
Right, they're always getting those nutrients. So it's not even necessarily a topical solution. Nothing ever really is. You know, that's a Band-Aid. That's just treating a symptom. It's not even about topically putting the trays in with hydrogen peroxide that does strip your enamel from the outside too. But if your teeth are discolored, it's something you're doing on the inside, honey. Because even if you drink wine, if your teeth are white underneath, they're going to go back to white, you know? So, I mean, unless you've got...
And it could just mean, you know, there are certain, when you just need a really good cleaning, like you may need to start fresh. So for those people, I always recommend doing the 8 steps for about 3 months.
Yeah, let's
go
talk
to a
about that.
holistic hygienist, and then you're back on the steps on your own, so you can maintain it. And then if you do the steps before you go, you'll have a shorter, cleaner, better appointment as well, because the hygienist won't be freaking out at the condition of your gums or that kind of thing, you know?
Awesome.
And I wanted to say... Oh, yeah, too. When you've got the right diet, it also informs your blood serum levels. So if the blood serum level with calcium is too high, you're going to get more tartar and plaque buildup, especially at the inner teeth around the, because that's where the parotid gland is. So it's like such a fine alchemy, really.
Yes. Amen, sister. You are in the know. Well, I love to leave my viewers and my friends and clients with uplifting stuff, because I know we've all been victim, no one's a victim, but we've all been subjected to horrible, horrific, very miseducated practices in the dental world and Western medical world. So we already talked about all that for this whole time. So to wind up, I'd love to talk about solutions, which you are so amazing at, because you are the botanical goddess, and you talk about the 8 steps. So I'd love, if you have time briefly, for you to tell us about the 8 steps to optimum dental wellness.
Yes, for sure. And just know that wherever your mouth is at, it can improve. Your gums can rejuvenate, the enamel can get stronger, the whole alchemy of your oral microbiome can thrive and help you take care of your mouth. So just know it can improve. And before we go into the 8 steps, a new thing that I have been talking about, and it's in my book too, and you can apply this to your skin or anything, it's stop, seal, and seed. So you want to stop brushing with fluoride and triclosan and using Listerine mouthwashes and all that kind of stuff, because all of those beyond the chemicals and things like even sodium lauryl sulfate in your toothpaste can create bleeding gums, and it makes your skin, like the skin in your mouths, more stuff will go into your bloodstream,
right,
because you've got bleeding gums,
right,
all that kind of stuff. So you want to stop doing all of that. And then you want to seal. So you want to seal and heal the gums, just like you would seal and heal like a leaky gut for your gut health and the microbiome of your body. You want to seal and heal. And so a lot of the botanical biotics and the 8 steps include things that seal and heal the oral microbiome. And then you want to seed. So you want to repopulate, you want to have because I think a mouth of bustling bacteria actually keeps the dentist away, contrary to our 40 years of germ warfare that we're about taking that Listerine and carpet bombing the mouth and then mutating the microbes and making the beneficial bacteria depleted.
Ridiculous.
So you want to have an oral care system that helps your oral ecology, which includes your oral microbiome.
Yes.
So you want to stop, seal, and seed. And then the 8 steps are, first you just swish it with your mouth, either salt water, so like a tablespoon of salt and 16 ounces of water. You can pre-make it in mason jar, put it in your bathroom, and then just do shots. Or you can do the same thing, or you can even mix them with baking soda. So that, and you can even add like a tooth serum or essential oils to that, like a drop of peppermint, as long as it's real and organic. Then you're swishing that in your mouth, and then you're setting the tone, like you've erased the day, you've balanced anything that was acidic. You're creating a nice sea of alkalinity.
Yay.
And then you're going to brush first with a manual toothbrush, and I like to use the ionic toothbrushes because the ionic charge, it actually removes about 40% of the plaque anyway, even with just water, with nothing on the toothbrush.
Oh, I love it. Are there any ionic?
You're brushing, and
yeah,
ionic toothbrushes.
Are there any
and then
that
you're
are not
really focusing on? Yeah. Are there what?
Oh, are there any that are not plastic or nylon? Are there any that are natural bristles? I can't find any. All right.
No.
I'm like, I don't want to put plastic into my gums. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
I know.
Put some of Nadine's drops.
I'll put that on my invention list.
Yes, please. We need natural bristles. Okay, sorry. Go on, Nadine.
It's okay. So at that point, you're really focusing on the gums, like dry brushing your skin.
Yes.
You're not dry brushing, but you're dry brushing the gums, and you're doing it down to the teeth or up to the teeth. So never back and forth ever, and you never want your bristles to be splayed. Even if after 6 months, those bristles should be totally perky.
Yay!
If they're flat, you're brushing way too hard. And always, your standard for a toothbrush head is soft. That is the strength. Okay, not medium, not hard. Even if you're a 200-pound man, soft bristles.
Good. Yes.
And so you're really stimulating the gums at that point. Then you're going to take like an electric toothbrush, sonic, or I love the actual round-headed ones. They're about $25, and they've got a round head. And that gets to other places that the manual didn't. And to that, I will suggest serums, but I also just say you can use salt and baking soda, and you're fine. I add in the botanical biotics for an extra thing. But if you're on a budget, no problem, because you can buy a bag of baking soda, a bag of sea salt, and you're good for years.
Awesome.
So it really doesn't have to be expensive. So with this, you're taking a dry toothbrush. I would add one of my dental serums or an essential oil like peppermint, and then I just add baking soda, or I would add one of my toothpastes, which are very baking soda based. This is your polishing phase. So I often think of back when I was in school, they had the janitors, and they had these round things, and they would do the wood floors.
Yep.
That's what you're doing. You're like buffing the teeth.
Cool.
So there you're polishing the teeth, and that's when you're going to help to get rid of the extra stains and the plaques, especially if you're using a dry toothbrush with the dry baking soda at first. It gets a really good grip, and there's a really good polish there. Sometimes, you know, as with everything on the internet, you can find arguments for both things. But the baking soda, there's talk about it being abrasive, but it's in the dental scale of abrasions, it's like really low. And many dentists have used baking soda for decades and find it amazing. It is amazing because it's alkaline. Our body actually produces baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, and it actually gets reduced as we age. It's like part of the pancreas. It helps the kidneys. So baking soda is like a miracle. Amazing. And you're going to do that. You could do that. That could be the stage where you do it with the hydrogen peroxide and the baking soda, and then brushing that way. And then you're going to want to really look at the gums. So for that, you could get a rubber tip tool. There's a few little dental tools, and you want to go through each gum line, like follow the gum line, and you want to remove the extra plaque because it will be there in the first few months. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to floss. You're going to add a dental serum, really ups your flossing game because then you're getting I call essential oils botanical biotics because they have the ability to inhibit the quorum sensing, which is the communication of pathogens. They can bust through biofilms.
Nice.
They can reduce plaque. They can clean up the mouth, but they don't disturb the beneficial bacteria.
Awesome. Well, I want to say one thing with that. Yeah. Do not buy, again, conventional dental floss because they're instead of the film being, you know, laced with beautiful botanicals from living libations, they're laced with fluoride and fake peppermint, and not real peppermint essential oil. Sorry?
Yeah, and petroleum wax.
Right, petroleum wax and fluoride and fake, not real, not healing peppermint, a different chemical peppermint, okay? So please, guys, no commercial floss. Okay, sorry, go on.
No, that's the stop. Stop. And then you want to floss twice.
Okay.
People are always like, do I have to floss twice? I'm like, yeah, because when you floss the second time, you will know why you're doing it the second time because there's still stuff. And then you're getting those botanicals in between all the weird places that no toothbrush can ever get to.
Wow.
And most people find that they're bleeding, or if they bleed when they floss, if they add the botanicals, for many people, that is gone the next day.
Awesome.
Depending on the general health, when they're using with the botanicals. Now, for some, if they're really crazy conditions, then switching to this oral care thing, it may take a week to stop the bleeding, but it really happens for a lot of people overnight because it is also an area that's really quick to heal because it is only one cell thick, so it can heal fast as well. So you're doing that, and then if you have an area that's receding or an area that needs special attention, you can also just massage in a botanical serum to the area. We also have an ozonated gel, and we also have these blunt-tipped syringes, so the end is not sharp, and it's crooked. What do you call it? It's like that. Yeah.
Right.
What's the word for that? And
crooked.
then you can just get it right under the gum line or between the teeth, and you can get great things like hydrogen peroxide or salt water, or it's like a very focused water pick that can get into more intricate areas. And then once you really clean out that sulca, that's the name for where the gums and teeth meet, then you can start bringing the gum pockets back down.
Cool.
Because a lot of people will go and they'll be like, oh, the dentist said I had a 7, 8, 9 gum pocket. Well, you can bring that back up to a 1, 2.
That's right, my
And you can really heal your mouth.
Everything's healable. Everything's healable. Cavities, gum issues, everything's healable. Yeah. What step was that? Is that step 4? 5?
That's like 8.
Oh, that's 8! Oh my gosh! Yeah. Wow, Nadine.
Oh no, that was 7, and then 8 is rinsing again or oil pulling.
Yes. Okay, so oil pulling is after all that, after everything. Okay.
Yeah, I like it. Why wouldn't you do that on a cleaner mouth?
Agreed. I'm gonna go do it right after this call. What about brushing? Okay, 2 questions, and then we'll wrap it up. One question is, back in the day before all this modern technology, we didn't have electric toothbrushes, and the healthiest cultures that have no cavities and no gum issues don't have electric toothbrushes. Why the electric toothbrush?
Yes, because I feel like we have a lot of catching up to do.
Oh, okay.
And you know what I mean? Like
Agreed.
we've had so many decades of going wrong, and we have things to undo. And even when we start adding minerals and things back into our diet, we can still find ourselves with more plaque because the alchemy is so fine.
Amen. Okay, well,
but you want to get to a stage where you don't feel like you have to brush every second to maintain your mouth.
Yes. So do you do those 8 steps every single day of your life?
I don't know, but a lot of people do. I do it maybe once a day, and then the second time's quicker.
Okay, cool.
But it's really important if you want to really turn around your mouth or go to the dentist and you haven't been for a while, because I know a lot too in our circles, they're so scared of the dentist, but they're actually still avoiding their teeth. So you want to you can ignore the dentist, but you can't ignore your teeth.
Right.
You know?
I love that. Ignore the dentist, my love. Ignore the dentist, but don't ignore your teeth. What a great rule of thumb. New bumper sticker, okay? I love that. Don't go to the dentist, but don't stop caring for your teeth, okay? I mean, you're right. Don't go to the dentist. Do care for your own teeth. Be your own doctor. Physician, heal thyself. Let food be thy medicine, and let living libations, botanicals be your medicine, okay? Not poly, fiber, dental floss. All right, with fluoride. Those are my questions. You are absolutely incredible, Nadine. You are so informed and so on your game, and I deeply appreciate the research and the passion with which you share that research on this earth for us mere mortals. I just cannot tell you how much I appreciate you. I'm so grateful I came across you in my health exploration, and I'd actually love to read something in addition to Nadine's 8 steps for optimum health and her list of incredible books and articles that are on her website. I also came across this True Blue story of Nadine, and I'd love to read that. I would love to read that to just show you what an amazing, magical creature our Nadine here really is, and why you should be listening to her. Okay, my little fairies. And yes, I'll put before we'll end with that. I'll read it, and then you can tell us your website. Do you mind? Can I read it?
Okay.
Okay, it's so poetic.
Sure.
It's so beautiful. I love sharing magic. So here we go. This is about Nadine. There was once a girl with a wild look in her eye and a smile that reached to the tip of her cheek. She cleaned up nice, yet her dress was a mess, with pockets full of acorns and twigs, and there was always a curl that longed to unfurl. I can relate. One day she sat, hands in lap, at the dining room table, in and out of murmuring grown-up din. The raspberries gathered earlier that day had stained the fingers of her imagination. With a rosy glow she gazed out the window and saw friends of branches and birds sway, beckoning her foray. So, without a sound, she slipped off her shoes, and her little feet whisked her away, and she didn't return till dusk the next day. Entranced by the galaxy in a patch of grass, she wondered if lightning was poured from a glass. Sleeping in a starry meadow, she dreamed on the cusp of my oh my and why, asking the sky, do butterflies really fly in bellies? Is every flower a flask of fun? Is a petal the spoon of some great perfume? Is there a great pantry filled with ladles of moonbeams and goblets of sun? Is bark the bottle of a tree that holds the secret sap for a scraped knee? And so she asked on into infinity. These are the mixtures, the fruit of her bud and mud brews, and her swishing and wishing to Adam everywhere with garlands of earth. These are the jars that pour the stories of how nature found Nadine and how she found you. That is so incredibly beautiful and heart-filling and soul-filling, and I know that you are the person to order my amazing living libations from reading that poem, Nadine. You are so in touch and so tapped in. So that is just a little summary of how Nadine came to explore our health and wellness through nature. And where can we find you in these magical creations?
You can find them at Living Libations. LivingLibations.com is our website, and there's a whole article section which will help. There's things on sun and pregnancy and yoni care, nice. And and then there's YouTube and Instagram. Instagram's my feed, so I like that because that's where I have pictures of our home and nature and everything like that. So it's my favorite one to contribute to.
Yay. Okay, awesome. I'm going to add you right away. I'm adding you right now. And my last question is, what is the title of your new book coming out? I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, that is called Renegade Beauty.
Yes.
And I just handed in the manuscript like 2 weeks ago, and I'm really excited. It was on my to-do list, so to speak, for several years, and I finally got done, and I just was so amazed at like how good my brain feels after, because it was so great to get it all out and put it together, and even just like pull a quote that I'd read when I was 20 or bring them into the mix. And so I'm just really excited about it, and it will come out in October of this year.
Oh my gosh, Nadine, congrats! I can't wait. We'll have you on at that time to talk about that book.
I felt like it's as much as my brain is like, it's in there right now. So it should do for a few years for everybody.
Awesome! No, you're so brilliant, and you're so connected to nature and the source. I'm sure that it'll be filled very shortly with a new book that needs to come out. Yeah, I love it. What we bring out will save us. What we don't bring out will destroy us. If you've got the divine talking to you in your head, honey, bring it out. Jesus, Book of Thomas, that's what it says. So, no, Nadine, thank you for tapping in, tuning in, and bringing out such divine wisdom for us. I really appreciate you. You are definitely a humanitarian that I had to chronicle. So, thank you for visiting my airwaves today, and thank you for the amazing advice. I cannot wait to get started on my new oral hygiene regimen. You've inspired me to the depths, to the root. Canal.
Right on.
Yeah, it's a natural, it's a healthy root canal with Nadine. Thank you, angels. I'll have your website on this video. If you liked it, like it. Subscribe to Nadine. Follow her on YouTube and Instagram and everywhere. And subscribe to me if you liked it. And we will see you shortly with some more Living Libations beauty advice to keep us healthy, vibrant, happy, and beautiful. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nadine.